Hi, this is Catherine Schneider from the Fitchburg Historical Society, and this morning we have two people coming to be interviewed from the Fitchburg Historical Society Board. We have Eileen Kellor and Nancy Dorman, and they're going to tell us about a program that's coming up very soon at the Fitchburg Public Library. So what's the upcoming event this month, sponsored jointly by the Fitchburg Historical Society and the Fitchburg Library?
Yeah, well, the library staff and Historical Society members are giving a Genealogy Resources program that is intended for people that might have an interest in genealogy and just don't know where to start. And it's for people who may have created a family tree, or they got a family tree from someone and they want to know more about the people in it. And it's also for people who maybe just want to learn about, what it is and what resources might be available to them to get started.
Sounds very exciting. And of course, we need to know the date and the time and the place that this is going to take place.
Yes, well, it's going to take place on Wednesday, May 22nd at 6 o'clock till 7:30 at Fitchburg Meeting Room on the upstairs of the Fitchburg Library.
All right, sounds very convenient. I know everyone knows where the Fitchburg Library is located.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, let's go into maybe a little more elaboration on what's going to be offered during this event and who will be available to highlight the genealogical resources that can be found through the local historical society and the library.
Well, I was just going to say it's going to be, again, Fitchburg Historical Society members and library staff that will be talking about the genealogy resources that they have available, through each of our programs and services. And then there'll be time during the program, at the end of the program, for people to actually get some knowledge and offer some assistance from members and also actually go on and try the digital services that they have. I know that the library staff member that's going to be there is Kara Kaufman, and she is going to talk about all the genealogy-related resources and tools that they have available for community members, including those that are on site and those that are available through BadgerLink. And just for example, she will talk about their subscriptions to the Ancestry.com, the library edition of it, and then HeritageQuest. And both of those are big databases, huge databases of all kinds of information that's very helpful in doing genealogy research for family histories and such. And for example, it's census records and military records, immigration records, birth, marriage, and death records. It's city directories. It's, even some family histories and local histories that have been written, and much more than that, too.
And much more. It sounds like a lot of resources will be presented to people as well as hands-on. So
exactly. And I think that, like with the Ancestry.com and the HeritageQuest, both of those databases are really great again. But one is has a more comprehensive, Ancestry.com has a more comprehensive resource, and HeritageQuest also has plenty. But what's interesting is the Ancestry.com is accessible when you go to the library, and HeritageQuest is something that you can even access remotely, which is interesting. And they also, she'll also be talking about, that's available through the BadgerLink, they have a wonderful newspaper database archive, both of Wisconsin newspapers and also some newspapers around the country, some historical newspapers, both with regional newspapers and city and small town newspapers, and you can find articles in those that are very helpful in doing genealogical research.
I'm just excited to hear
Yeah.
about all these
I
possibilities.
know. I mean, it's, even when we were planning it, and we were just talking to, getting some ideas. I, had my own Ancestry.com subscription and paid monthly and everything. I had no idea that it was, that there was one I could access, and I had never heard of HeritageQuest. And certainly the handiness of the newspaper search, and through their services too, they can access Wisconsin Historical Society records that are a lot, and much more. But it really just shows you just how much resources is available besides what we have and what other historical societies have too.
So Nancy did a great job of explaining and describing what the library is going to provide, and I think that's really valuable because it's a newer library. It's not huge. It's a wonderful library, but there's not a dedicated genealogical research section. So I think this will be a great way for us to help share with the community the kinds of resources that the library has available. And then from the Historical Society side, what we're hoping and planning to offer are some of our personal experiences, particularly Nancy and me, because, Nancy's probably the more structured, dedicated researcher, and I'm like, this looks really interesting, let's check that out. So we're going to talk about some of our own experiences and the kinds of resources we used, but we'll also be highlighting the kinds of information that we have available through our Historical Society. So for example, we have a really extensive photograph database, which if you're looking for maybe you're looking for content. What was it like if you were a farmer in 1900? We probably have photographs that could help bring that alive for you, even if you're not a Fitchburg native. We also will be highlighting within our holdings, as they were, content that might be specific to Fitchburg, but that you could look at how we use that and then extrapolate it to how you could use that in a different location. Since we know, Fitchburg is one of the fastest growing communities in the state, most of our residents are not probably natives. So our goal is that we can use our technical knowledge and help people apply that to their own experience wherever in the country that might be.
Because there is that transfer of how you use that information and how it can be brought to your own ancestry in a way that you can make those connections for people.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, that might not be obvious beyond the old days of a microfiche where you'd look at a census roll and you go, oh, this is this person. That there's a lot more tools and a lot more holistic ways of approaching genealogical research than just looking at dates on a
There really are,
a
and
film.
it's the kind of thing that once you find something, it's like you never even knew that existed or even thought of that, and then it kind of connects you to your next little search. To find out little tidbits after tidbit of information.
Like keep following the trail, and it never ends. Actually,
Right,
does it?
exactly.
It's like, where in the world was Carmen Sandiego, and how did she get here?
How in the world did we end up where we are? That kind of thing.
And except that it's very personal to our own families and ancestry.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Well, can you give maybe a sneak preview of something that may surprise people about available resources for family research?
Well, one is, again, we mentioned some of the obvious things that people are used to, plat maps and census records and birth certificates and things like that. But there's a lot of other information that might not be immediately obvious. So the one that I often think about that can reveal a huge treasure trove of information are obituaries. Because an obituary often, in the days before privacy concerns, often included the mom's maiden name. It included dates of birth. It might have included weddings. It includes siblings. It may have included the schools people attended, where they lived, the different jobs that they held, family members who died before them or that they're surviving by. So you can look at an obituary and find just often a really extensive set of information that give you clues to other places. One thing about obituaries, too, that unlike, let's say, a death certificate, those of us who've done genealogical research may have had experiences looking at a death certificate where it's like well, no, the mother was not born in Canada, the mother was born wherever. Well, those types of information were drawn from people who were present at the site. So maybe it was a daughter-in-law who really didn't know the family history who provided the information on a death certificate, whereas an obituary is probably going to be more accurate because it's giving information that the family ostensibly has shared or researched and has documented. So it's a way to also then triangulate. So I think that one of our key resources that we have on our website and that we can make available and give examples of our obituaries. And just to mention that for here in Fitchburg, we collect or archive obituary information for pretty much anybody who we think has an association with Fitchburg. So it might be people who've been here for centuries, like your family, Catherine, or it might be,
yours,
well,
probably.
it's been off and on here for a long time, and it might be people who were important people in a business that's based in Fitchburg. So we try to have a very broad set of information on that. So that, I think, is the one that, for many people, might be the biggest surprises. What do obituaries tell us?
Yeah, and what I think too, to add to that, is I have read obituaries in my little research that sometimes the families have written the obituary in a way that they even talk about personality traits and things like that.
Right.
That you don't, you wonder, or what kind of person she was, or he was, or whatever, and sometimes it might be the neighbors saying, oh, they were a great neighbor, or whatever, but you get little facts like that in an obituary too.
Goes beyond the facts and the data to really delve into the personality sometimes in the obituaries, which you would not get anywhere else.
Very much, and I think that's similar to even in finding some articles that you would think, is there going to be an article on one of my ancestors in a newspaper? And then you think, you find one, and whether it's, they're visiting, they were visiting family in this area or whatever, and then it tells a little bit more about them, especially in small town newspapers and stuff like that. But you find little tidbits, and for me, that I like to have the history and the facts and tie it to the historical times, but also about them personally.
Yes, you can really get into who they were in that regard.
Exactly.
Great. Well, so I'm wondering what prompted offering this particular program as a partnership between the Fitchburg Historical Society and the Fitchburg Library.
Okay. Well, I think the Fitchburg Historical Society and the library decided we wanted to work together more in promoting programs and activities that would further our missions and goals and be a mutual interest. For example, that the Fitchburg Historical Society's motto is yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And that and we thought this Genealogy Resources program would be perfect for tying in both ours and the library's mission. But our for Fitchburg Historical Society, we wanted to not only help people, inform people about our history, but also help connect that history to current times and current decision making and current issues. And the Fitchburg Public Library's vision is to really encourage lifelong learning and curiosity and discovery and things like that. And they also, its mission is to inspire and connect people through a variety of enticing, innovative experiences. And this genealogical research helps people learn not only about their family histories, but it helps them discover how they may have influenced who we are now.
That's a lovely connection between the library and the Fitchburg Historical Society in missions. History is yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and then the learning and sparking that lifelong learning and discovery of who we are in that lifelong learning. Lovely, lovely to tie those together with this program. Well, so practicality. Where is the Fitchburg Fitchburg Historical Society located, and how can the public access that?
So we are a little different than a lot of historical societies in that we are primarily a virtual society, meaning that we don't have a huge physical presence. We have an office located in the public library here in Fitchburg, 5530 Lacey Road, up the second story of the building. And we maintain 2 display cases within the library. So one rotates a couple of times a year, and currently I believe has content from the Swan Creek Sewing Circle. But that one changes 2 or 3, maybe even 4 times a year. The other display case that we are responsible for is in the Fitchburg Room, which is a resource. It's the one where many holdings within the library that relate to history and local history are housed in there. There's a large display case in there that we currently have a display about the one-room schoolhouses that are in Fitchburg. So those are the 2 things that are most readily accessible to individuals in a physical manner. If there's content that we have available, we can, let's say there's an actual photograph that someone really, really wants to see or needs to see. If we have that in an actual physical form, we can make an appointment and arrange to have someone come. But the main way people can access our information is through our website, which is, I will just say, very impressive for a small historical society. It's fitchburghistory.org is how you would find us. And what you'll find on there is a really, I think, exceptional mix of history about the people, the land, current industry, current businesses. Virtually every one of our programs that has been presented in person has been videotaped by Fact TV. We have those videos online. We have our programs online. There's just a real wealth of resources in there. So that if you ever have a child or someone who needs to do research on some topic, even if you're not from Fitchburg, I would suggest have them look at that. Because you're going to find cemeteries, religious information, schools, things like that, again, might spur them to find it in another area. So, and that means that our holdings are available any time of the day or night, virtually, and the physical ones are available whenever the Fitchburg Library has open hours.
Great, great. Very accessible, and the technology that makes it possible to have all of these things available through the Fitchburg Historical Society website, fitchburghistory.org. Well, finally, I'm always curious about, both of you have done research on your own family's genealogy, and what has that meant to you personally, and what do you think this event, why it will be interesting to others, because you've had the experience of doing genealogy yourselves.
Well, I'm going to start because technically I have a Fitchburg tie.
Yes.
My first ancestors in Wisconsin showed up just right on the edge of the town of Oregon and the town of Fitchburg around 1857, along those lines. So for me, genealogical research is really a lot about learning about the people that literally were in my backyard, or I'm in their backyard. Probably that's more it. So for me, what genealogical research has done, it's really made me realize the impact of my ancestors. So Ancestry.com that Nancy mentioned, I'm obsessively on that as well. And when I look at my little DNA reports, the communities that it has me with, one of them for both of my maternal and paternal sides are early settlers of Wisconsin. And I never thought about my family as early settlers of Wisconsin. I didn't. I mean, they were here pretty early, but I didn't think they were early settlers. So that really kind of put me into a mindset of who were these people, what were their experiences, and how do I relate to them now? So the most visible one is when I plot my ancestors' movements around Dane County and Westport and Stoughton and Oregon and Fitchburg and Verona, and I think about what those places look like now. My immediate thought is, well, what did those look like when they were here? And how did they respond to change? And what was development looking like then? And how did that influence them? So I think using my experience as an example, genealogical research can help connect you to the people, can make you ask questions that you might not ask or learn things that you might not have learned. So many of us may have had older relatives that we never knew, or that had things in their lives that were uncomfortable and they didn't want to talk about. So something like this, where we're looking beyond just the dates of something and trying to find out about the people, I think can really help you understand your own life, your own family, and again, relate better to the people whose lives might be experiencing those right now.
Yeah, no, that's great. Unlike Eileen, I came to Fitchburg after college, and so I've lived here a long time, but my family, it wasn't from around here or anything. But I have always had a love of history, and then I'm also, and out of that, certainly interested in family history. I had a mom who always told these anecdotal stories about growing up, and we'd go on drives, and her family and her grandma and grandpa and where they lived, in the schoolhouses they lived, and things like that. And it spurred me to really want to find out more about them personally and the ones that came before them. Unlike my mom, my dad's parents were immigrants to this country from Switzerland. And my grandma, Dorman, was, very new immigrant. She had several children and then was widowed. And then I knew my grandma, but she was one who never talked about herself, for sure, and you never got to feel like you knew much about her, even if you saw her every Sunday. And she never talked about her family or her background or anything. So it spurred me to also want to really look into, is there any way that I could find out more information about that side of the family too? And when I started, what's interesting is we were always told we were like, we knew we were half Swiss, but we knew the rest was supposed to be Irish. We only had Irish immigrants. But when I started doing the research on my mom's side of the family, it was amazing of the information I found. And it turned out that some of them came when they were here for hundreds of years on one side of the family. And it was amazing of the information I found out and the details about both their personalities but also what they did. And it turned out that they actually, one branch of the family lived in the Plymouth colony, and they came but there were such good records in a lot of these places, or articles, or local histories, or people who had even done, that were long distant relatives that we would never have known that had done some work in it, that you were able to discover some of that stuff. And so interesting. And the same thing with my immigrant grandparents. Couldn't find out all as much, but found an article that was written about my grandfather's family in Switzerland that we translated, and it told about them as a family and their personalities and things. And of course, Ellis Isles records and stuff like that we were able to find. So anyway, finding out about my family history really affected me in the way that it kind of made me the family genealogy expert, that I could share information with people, that even people that in the family, an extended family, that didn't think they were that into genealogy, but then they would ask. For example, my great niece, my nephew contacted me, and he said his daughter was reading a book and had asked him a question of whether anybody in our family had served in the Civil War, and he knew I might have known that information, and so he contacted me, and sure enough, there were several people that did. And it just made you think again of here, a young 8-year-old girl is reading a book that has spurred her interest. Okay, it's got a little history in it. It's like, and probably about a family or something that was during the Civil War, and thought, is there anybody, you know? And then here she could think, while she's almost reading the book, picture that family member.
Yes.
Distant, you know,
family.
her own family member having gone through maybe some of those things too.
There's one other thing I just wanted to mention, why we think this is pretty interesting to others, is that those of us of a certain age who started genealogy research when we were younger was very sterile, very limited, and very expensive or time consuming. You might have to go to the Historical Society, get the film, get the little file, and look at the microfiche. And so you were really restricted. The resources that are available now, and many of which are available through the library or through other online resources, make this kind of research so much easier and so much more accessible. So I think that also will be an interesting component for people who may have been frustrated by past efforts and just thought, I'm not going to do this. So
That's a really good point, Eileen, because it is a dynamic resources. I mean, it is changing, and more documents, more resources are being made available, you know, and in some communities, I belong to a couple other historical societies that are part of where I lived, and they are growing both their collection on site as well as their, you know, online stuff. But so that's exactly true. It's like you might have hit a dead end, or there was nothing, or oh gosh, it was like, I'm not going to physically go to that place to look or drive to wherever. You know, go to the Plymouth Colony to do research or something like that. But so I'm constantly learning and changing and finding more things out. And as different family members, younger generations, it's not everybody in families, but there's different generations of people that are into it. And then they might find a little tidbit, and then it's like that little tidbit of information. Or we found an old autograph book of, you know, a family member, and then you read that, and then it might spur another little thing in there.
It's like this whole conversation has, I think, stirred, certainly in me, and further interest in genealogy, and I think those who are going to be coming to the program will have that opportunity to find out how accessible, as both of you have said, where our local resources are from the Fitchburg Historical Society, from the library here, and also have help personally to get their hands into it. So I think this is just such a wonderful program to be offered here in May. And so let's repeat maybe the date one more time, and the time and the place, and so we'll leave that with people to know.
Okay, it's Wednesday night, May 22nd, from 6 o'clock till 7:30 in the meeting room of the Fitchburg Public Library, which is upstairs in the library at 5530 Lacey Road. And again, there will be time at the program for you to, you know, you heard a little thing, you could ask maybe some questions, or you can even go on the library's Ancestry.com or HeritageQuest to even have some help in just even manipulating it a little bit, you know. And the library is going to have some laptops available, and or people could bring their own if they want, you know, if they get a little start on something.
All right, sounds fantastic. Well, thank you both, Eileen and Nancy, for being here to talk about the program and let us know all about it.
yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.